Welcome, everyone, and welcome whether this is your first ever event with Exit or if you have indeed been a regular festival goer since the early 2000s. We have something special in store for you today. The topic of building values-driven societies is finally gaining prominence in the world. A lot more has been written on this topic in recent years. And with us today, we have some of the most progressive and influential authors on this topic. I'll start with Richard. Richard Barrett is a legend in this space. He is an author, values luminary, and founder of the Barrett Values Centre. The Barrett Values Centre is the largest global values organization, which has assessed more than 50 nations, tens of thousands of companies, and millions of individuals with respect to their values over the previous 30 years. His published books include Liberating the Corporate Soul, The Values-Driven Organization, and of course, his most recent book, Worldview Dynamics and the Well-Being of Nations. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you so much, Nicola. Would you like me to say a few words, or are you going to introduce everybody else as well?
If you'd like to add something to your illustrious CV, please do so.
Oh, no, just to say that for the last 2 years, I've been heading up the Barrett Academy for the Advancement of Human Values, which is focused on 2 areas. One, the one we're talking about tonight, the values and evolution of society at a global level. And at the other end of that spectrum, what I call ego-soul dynamics. It's the how individuals grow and develop from being a baby through the teenage years into their adult years. And these 2 things are absolutely linked, but there are different ends of the spectrum. I won't say any more about that right now because I'm really looking forward to hearing about what our other panelists have been up to.
Fantastic. Next up is Tomas Bjorkman. He is a philanthropist, a social entrepreneur, I should say a serial social entrepreneur, and a co-author of Nordic Secret with Lena Anderson. The Nordic Secret is the book that recounts the efforts that have been put into building a values-driven society in the Nordic countries about 150 years ago that have resulted in the level of development that the Nordics enjoy today. His other published works include The World We Create and The Market Myth. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you very much. And I could also take the opportunity just to mention a bit what I'm doing right now, the last couple of years. I'm running my own foundation in Stockholm, the Oak Island Foundation. And this foundation is dedicated to exploring the connection between our personal inner development and societal change. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Thomas. And next is Slavica Squire. She's a leader in the global NLP community, founder of the NLP Institute and Coaching Academy. And her work has touched tens of thousands of individuals, mostly in Southeast Europe, helping them shift their mindsets and live their values and therefore their lives more fully. Her published works include The Best Revenge is Happiness, NLP is the Spice of Every Success, and a number of other books on gratitude and forgiveness. Welcome, Slavica. Slavica, I think you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. I'm so happy to be in such a wonderful group of people and invited here too. I just want to say in this moment that I came 2004 from Germany to bring this coaching and NLP in Serbia, and in this time this was so unknown in Serbia and around in here that people was calling me NLO, which in our language means UFO. And this is really why I came here, is because the personal development was such unknown thing in our society in this time, and I really start small, and now I'm so happy that there are so much people who are interested in personal development, because like my companion here said, I think this have a connection to change the society. So it's a small work which is having a big impact. Thank you.
Great to have you as the lady on our panel, and as also as the person who has had most practice on the field, doing this work with individuals over the decades. And myself, I actually haven't published any books, not a single one, but I have published thousands of PowerPoint presentations, so that's why I'm your host today. I lead McKinsey's Culture and Change work in about 90 countries, spanning Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I've had the pleasure of supporting senior leaders of organizations, governments, and the nations to build values-driven systems. I'm also the founder of Project Light. So let's start with Richard. So Richard, you once said societies don't change, people do, and organizations don't change, people do. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into trying to transform organizations, and I felt it was we needed to ground that work in the fact that organizations don't transform, people do. In other words, the culture of an organization is a reflection of leadership consciousness. If you want to change the culture of an organization, then you either change the leaders or the leaders have to change. And that's what I meant when, you know, organizational transformation begins with the personal transformation of leaders. Now, let's lift that up a level and to, you know, the level of society. You know, I believe that societies evolve as they evolve. In a democratic society, they elect leaders who reflect the average level of consciousness of the nation. So let's just take a look at the USA and what happened with Donald Trump. So half the people, or more or less, reflect the same level of consciousness that he has. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got elected. It's the same in every country where there is a democratic system. In a authoritarian regime, yeah, well, it's the person with the most power and the most clout who gets themselves into a position of authority. So if you want to change a society, it begins at the grassroots by changing the way that individuals grow and evolve. And that's something I'll be talking about later. And that's the focus of what I'm launching right now, which is the Humanity Awareness Initiative, where we focus on transforming or helping young people, leaders, to think or to go through what I call the individuating stage of development, where they give up all their personal, their parental and cultural programming and find out who they really are, and then live a values-driven life. You know, so that's in a short word, that's kind of my answer. Yeah, transformation begins with you. And I'm pointing at everybody in the audience. I know I can't see you, but I'm actually pointing right at you.
Thank you for sharing, Richard. And maybe this is a good moment, perhaps, to shift to Tomas. And Tomas, would love to ask you, how is Richard's statement that it starts with you, how has that been applied to reach the level of development that you see in the Nordics today?
Yeah, thank you, Nicola, for that question. Yeah, so the starting point here is, of course, that all the Nordic countries were very, very poor countries 100 years ago. 150 years ago, they were dirt poor. People were starving. A large part of the population of the Nordic countries emigrated. For example, in Sweden at the end of the 1800s, up to 30% of the working population emigrated to the US just because of the hardship in Sweden. So the Nordic countries back then, they were all the poorest, non-democratic agrarian societies. And just a few generations later, even before the Second World War, all the Nordic countries were at the top of the list of the richest, the most happy, the most stable industrial democracies. And now you might say that we might start losing some of this, but certainly this transition from the pre-modern societies into the modern societies, I would argue that the Nordic countries made that transition better than any other countries in the world, and faster, and and peaceful. So
that's quite startling, Thomas. I just want to pause on that, right? Because effectively what you're saying that 150 years ago, this was a dark part of Europe, agrarian, agricultural society, uneducated, and the machinery of the Industrial Revolution was coming. And we know that in many countries that transition did not happen peacefully. There was a lot of blood in many countries that was let for that transformation to happen. Yet the Nordics managed to do it in a peaceful, constructive way, and yet you're still seeing the benefits of that. So what, how did that happen?
Yeah, so that is what my friend and colleague Lena Andersson, who has done the most work and research and writing in this book of ours, The Nordic Secret, and I spent 2 years investigating. And what we found, a bit to our surprise, because this story is really also forgotten in the Scandinavian countries, and I might come back to why that is the case. What we found was that 150 years ago, we had very visionary intellectuals and politicians in all the Nordic countries who actually understood that in times of rapid social change, and of course, these politicians, they saw industrialization and urbanization coming. So they knew that in times of rapid social change, it's just so easy for us humans to look for an outside authority to hold on to during these turbulent times. So we might look for a dogmatic religion or an authoritarian leader to just follow. But these intellectuals and politicians, they didn't want to be authoritarian leaders. They were truly committed to build democracy. And they knew that the only way to build democracy is to build it from bottom up. So they wanted to instigate a program to be able to facilitate the development of a lot of individuals in our societies, to be able to reach such a level of maturation that you actually can leave the reliance on an external authority and instead start to rely on your own internal compass. To go from a mind where you are socialized into an environment and you take your values only from the outside into a state where you can find your true inner values. And the way that they did this was quite extraordinary, because they put on a program where they created something that we today might call retreat centers everywhere over Scandinavia. So at the turn of the last century, around year 1900, there were 100 centers like this in Denmark alone, 75 in Norway, and 150 in Sweden, where young adults in their early 20s, later on with full state subsidy, could spend up to 6 months in retreat with the expressed aim of becoming so grounded in yourself that you could rely on your internal compass when it comes to navigating this great societal transition. And when this program was at its height, up to 10% of each new generation had the opportunity to participate in one of these 6 months programs. And of course, that created what we today would call a critical mass or a tipping point in society, because these people who could participate in these programs, they were not just in an isolated elite somewhere in the society. They actually came from all walks in life. And the majority of these people were from farming background or from working class background. So these very, very forward-thinking politicians, they actually managed to create a critical mass of what we today would call conscious co-creators of modernity. And of course, I believe that that is what we need to do today. Again, if we should be able on a global scale to be able to pass through the very deep transformation that we are now facing from industrial nations into some sort of post-industrial global society.
Thank you, Thomas. That's a truly fascinating story. I remember having first heard about this myself only about 2 years ago. I was also shocked to hear that a lot of retreat centers, and there's a lot of yoga centers and places where people are going to do this kind of work. It's actually 150 years ago. This was normal in the Nordics, and not for a week of your holidays, but for 6 months. People went and worked on these topics.
Yeah, and of course, I should mention that during 6 months, you had times to do many things. And of course, as we might come back to, inner development takes time. You need these processes, you need to give these processes time. So they, apart from working on themselves, and mainly through deep discussions amongst the participants, often out in nature, there was also lectures about new technology and how we could embrace new technology for the good, but also how to organize social movements and things like that. So it was a fairly broad program. And these centers were called folk high schools, I should mention for those who are interested.
Folk high schools, yes. I think that folk component, as you said, many of these people were, it was the common person that went to them. It wasn't the program for the elite by any means.
No. And we might come back later to where these ideas came from, and it had its origin in Germany, and why this happened in Scandinavia, and why we lost it. But that's for later.
Thank you, Thomas. So let's maybe, Slavica, if I could ask you, and if we zoom into the present moment. And Thomas, you said that these are times of rapid social change in the late 19th century. And that was what sparked these folk high schools. And you could argue that today we are in times that went from rapid social change before COVID to extremely rapid social change now. And Slavica, I know you've been working with thousands of and tens of thousands of individuals over the past years and decades. In terms of helping them actually find their own inner compass and find their own inner voice and live a life from the inside out rather than outside in. And from your practice, what do you believe are the key mindset shifts that are needed for individuals today to make those shifts, so that we would, as a collective, shift our societies to a more values-driven one? You're on mute again, Slavica.
I need to express my admiration to the Scandinavian folks. This is such a dream to have something. I would really love that we can manage this in our countries, because we really need this to change the mindset in our countries. And this was my idea when I came years ago here. I was thinking, okay, I learned something, NLP and coaching, but this is just a tool to change people mindset in terms of how they are perceiving their own power. So because in our socialism time the people was somehow giving their power to outside, so that the government and environment is odgovoran. Responsible. I'm sorry, I have my assistant who is better in English than me, so who is responsible for their life. So I just wanted to teach as many people as I can in my life. I am 54 already, so I think I have such a time to teach that they have their own power in themselves, and that they find a way to own this power. So because this is for the people in our socialism countries very hard to take this own power, and I'm so happy that it's really through the practice of all these years shown that this is possible for the people, that they are interested on that, to find really to think about their own values, and to find a way to balance the cause. If they are living something against their own inner values, they get frustrated with the time, and with the time they get also sick, so that their life is not really good. And nobody teach them in the school that they really can be aware of their own values, and that they can balance their life to these values, and then have a life in a part of a well-being, not in a part of a illness. And this is what I really doing here with all individuals. I say I teach NLP and I teach coaching. Actually, I am using this only as a tool to teach people to take their own life in their own hands, and to be aware of their own values, to find out which values are their own, how they can manage life, which is really in balance with these values. And this is really good work for individual, and I think on a great scale, when there are enough people who are learning this and who are aware of that their life is their own thing, that the whole society can change. But I am really slowly with this, so because I have a few thousand of people learn this in the last 16 years, I would really have like Scandinavian countries where the young people can come and this become a mainstream inner personal development, and learning how to manage their life. So I would be so happy. This would be a dream. So I want to give a time to somebody else to.
Thank you, Slavica. Maybe Richard, I mean, there's few people that have thought more in their lives around how do you live your own values? How do you find your own values? And how do you live in balance with your own values? So would love to hear from you. What guidance do you have? You know, you said it starts with each of us. Okay, I heard you.
Yeah.
Now tell me what to do.
All right.
Without telling me what to do.
I'm going to tell you. Have you got your notebook handy?
Yes, I'm taking notes.
Okay. All right. So I've been working on this topic for 25 years or more now. So the first thing is, if you're, watching or listening, is you want to know, what are your values? Well, you can go to the website of valuescentre.com. Center spelled in the English way, not the American. valuescentre.com/PVA, which stands for Personal Values Assessment, and you can do the free values assessment, and you'll get the results in about 4 or 5 minutes, and it shows you what your top 10 values are, and at the same time, it shows you at which levels of consciousness you're operating from, based on the model that I developed based on Maslow many years ago, 7 levels of consciousness. So I highly recommend that as a starting point to find out what are your values. Now, why are we talking about values and why are we not talking about beliefs? Because there is a shift going on from belief-based decision-making to values-based decision-making. You see, beliefs are based on information on the past that we now project into making decisions about our future. Well, I tell you, that's a foolish thing to do because the past is changing. The present is changing so fast. Basing your decisions on beliefs from the past just doesn't work anymore. So you need to get back to what we were talking about earlier, that inner compass, which is what is it in your heart that makes you feel good when you live by those decisions? And the answer to that question is simply values. So valuescenter.com/PVA is the first step. What are your values? Now, I can tell you, like 1.25 million people have done that assessment, and it takes less than 10 minutes, and you get an answer in a few minutes. And you can also there are some exercises you can do to find out.
Richard, can you give?
That's the starting point.
Can you give some examples, Richard, please, of what could your values be? It's quite an abstract word. So, what would values be like?
Okay, so commitment, creativity, safety,
freedom,
efficiency, productivity, freedom, recognition. There are different values linked to different levels of consciousness. So, you've got values at the survival level. So that would be things to do with financial stability, for example. And then at the relationship level, that would be respect, and it would be friendship, it would be family. And at the self-esteem level, it would be recognition, efficiency, productivity, etc. I hope that gives you an example of, you get to choose from a list of about 50 or 60 words, your top 10, and then it's fed back to you in a report, and the values show up at different levels of consciousness, so you can see where you are on a consciousness scale, which actually links through then into, well, what levels of consciousness are the people in my nation operating from, and what is the consciousness of my nation? So we've actually been mapping the values of nations since 2002. We've mapped the values of we've done over 50 or 60 assessments, of which in the last 10 years, we've done a values assessment in Sweden every year over the past 10 years. So, and you can find all of that work either at the Barrett Values Centre or at the Barrett Academy for the Advancement of Human Values. So starting point is, what are my values? What is it that's important to me for living my life in a way that I'm not just repeating what my parents told me and what my cultural condition is? Who the hell am I at the deepest level of my being?
Mm-hmm. And for you today, Richard, if you would mention 3 values that are important for you today, which 3 values would that be?
So this is a good, I love being with you, Thomas, because you always ask interesting questions. So we have certain values that we keep right through our life. And there are other values that change with age. Strangely enough, honesty is a value that increases as you get older, to about 50, and then it becomes slightly less important. So the old age people, they don't get... they're not so interested. Well, they're less interested in honesty than they used to be. But anyhow, that's just a funny anecdote. So there are values that you maintain throughout your life, and for me, one of my deepest values is creativity. I cannot stop being creative. If you were told me you're not allowed to be creative anymore, I would die. Creativity is like fundamentally important to me, and I've grown into a value that is also fundamentally important, and that is love and kindness. It's compassion, empathy, and that's normal for my age. Now, when you're much younger, in your teenage years, for example, and I guess we have teenagers and young adults listening today, as teenagers, what we're looking for is respect and recognition from our peers and hopefully also from our parents. And as we move into our 20s and 30s, we move into that individuating stage, we look for freedom and autonomy to be who we are and explore our own values and not be operating with a socialized mind, which is the mind that was given to us by our culture. We want to be independent of this socialization process so we can be who we really are. And that's exactly what happened in the Nordic countries. What you described earlier, so such a fascinating way, is what happened. They had a program of individuation that allowed people to become who they really are. What I'm now proposing through the Humanity Awareness Initiative is to take that idea, modernize the Bildung idea, and take it global to every country. So I know this is deep in your heart too, Tomas, and so I'm really glad we're here to explore this more in depth, to have a sort of global Bildung for every nation, because every nation starts at a different level, because the culture in one country is slightly different. And just like our personality reflects our personal history, the consciousness of a nation reflects that nation's history. So the history of Hungary is different from the history of France, and therefore you can expect the consciousness in Hungary to be different from the consciousness in France. And you look at the USA and what is going through right now, and you see, this value of independence, this value of freedom has almost gone off the scale. And it's all about self-interest and no longer about the common good. Whereas in Europe, we've always embraced the common good. And this is very true in the Scandinavian countries. I know in the Scandinavian countries, you have something called the law of Jante. And practically every Scandinavian has heard about that, but they never talk about it, which is basically saying you're not to think you're any better than the rest of us. Which actually says, we need to repress elitism and we need to focus on the common good. Anyhow, I'm going to zip up now and listen to what other people have to say.
I just want to add there, Richard, to what you just said there, bringing this idea of helping people to grow in life, and especially to grow early in life into more mature values. That was part of this program in Scandinavia, that my foundation is involved in a project to build a digital platform for support of this kind of growth, so that the access to tools for growth can be democratized and can reach many people. And it's a non-profit project, so it is completely free, and it's based on an app, and it's called 29K. 29K, that's 29,000. That's the number of days in your life if you live a long life. So I really recommend everyone that are interested in trying on personal development to download the app 29K and just try it.
Thank you, Thomas. And maybe I can ask your own question back to you around what are your own top 3 values?
Yeah, so it's difficult. Just like Richard said, values can vary over life, but they can also vary over the day. Sometimes you are in some mood, and especially if you are hungry or you are scared, then you revert to the more survival values. Of course, they are always important. But perhaps, I would share creativity with Richard. Authenticity is important to me, and also curiosity. I'm still very, very, very curious, and I find a great enjoyment in learning new things and then using that knowledge to create new things. So I would say curiosity, creativity and authenticity. And the last one, I should say that that is a value that I've taken on fairly late, so I'm still working a lot on that. That value is still a challenge to live for me.
Thank you. And Slavica, what's your top three?
I am young in heart, and my values are perhaps I don't know, but I think the first what comes in my mind is freedom, peace, and love. So this is what I appreciate and try to balance my life to that. And I'm really amazed about this both of the tools what you two of you said, and I will really look a little bit more in both of these tools, and be free to contact you about that. It's really nice, and I recommend everybody who is looking here to look at that, because it's amazing, really, that we can have this all technique that help us to be connected in such a wonderful way, and such give us such a possibility to learn from each other, and from years that you spend in all these things that are amazing. I'm sure I am actually professional student, and I am so always excited to learn new things and to learn more about all things, and I see here that I can learn more, so I'm very happy about that. Thank you very much, both of you, about sharing this.
Okay, I have one more thing. Actually, a couple more things to share. Actually, now the conversation getting exciting. So first of all, I wrote a book called Everything I've Learned About Values a couple of years ago. It's now in German and in English. So Everything I've Learned About Values. And
how is the name on German?
Well, you're not hitting my strong point right there, but let's still have an email exchange.
Okay, sorry. I'm just so excited because German is my first language.
I know. I'll let you know. And the other thing is, I've just finished creating 18 e-learning courses, and it took me the last 7 months. And if you sign up, if you go to barrettacademy.com, you can sign up for e-learning courses. And there are 3 which are absolutely free. So you sign up and you get 3 free courses right away. And one of those courses is called Living a Values-Driven Life. So, you can sign up for that, immediately. You can sign up now if you're listening. It's barrettacademy.com, and find the e-learning, and then just sign up, and you get 3 free courses. The other one is to do with the Humanity Awareness Initiative, which I mentioned earlier, and Living a Values-Driven Life. And so you can spend some time looking at your values-driven life at home, at work, and in society. And that course actually follows a similar idea than my book, Everything I've Learned About Values. So these are free resources. All of these are free resources Thomas is talking about, I'm talking about, for anybody who wants to dig into values. Oh, one more thing. So in some nations now, they are forming what's known as Values Alliance. If you look up UK Values Alliance, you'll find a website where there have been, for 5 or 6 years now, a group of people who have been promoting values-driven life. The same thing's happening in the USA, so these are popping up in different nations. These name of the country, so Values Alliance. In October, there's a National Values Day. So there's an awful lot going on in this values space.
So why is this important? We could ask ourselves. I mean, we're talking about values, and we're talking about a values-driven society and a values-driven life. Richard, you already mentioned that in a rapidly moving technological environment where we cannot rely on history to make decisions, then of course values becomes very important.
Yeah,
So
I do.
And so finding your own values is important just for your own individual life. But then if we look at the societal level, why is it important that we talk about values, and what is the connection here between the values and the consciousness development that you mentioned, this lifelong maturation that also goes under the name of Bildung and Volksbildung? So shall we try to unpack why this is important? Richard, do you want to start? And I have some ideas I might chip in.
Yeah, no, I'll try and be brief, and then everybody else can jump in. So most people on the planet live unconsciously. Okay, and what does that mean? So to become conscious means becoming aware of how your actions and behaviors impact other people and the planet. And secondly, becoming aware of how your thoughts and beliefs impact your physical and mental health. And thirdly, becoming conscious means caring about the impact of your actions and behaviors on other people, and caring about the impact of your thoughts and beliefs on your physical and mental health. Now, this individuation, this Bildung process is all about becoming conscious. Now, most people on the planet are actually unconscious. They're unaware of the impact that they're having on other people, on their society. They just follow whatever it is that's going on. Now,
or on nature, we should also add.
On nature.
That is very important today, of course, with our environmental challenges. So most people might even not be aware of their impact on other people, on society, nor on the environment. Yeah.
And also on themselves, on their own inner stability, Richard, as you've called it.
Yeah.
So if we can
there's an increasing...
if we can help more people to wake up to these facts, and that is what you are calling the individuation process. It's helping people to wake up to this, and that is what was happening in the Scandinavian centers I was talking about. That was actually helping people to wake up to this. And then, of course, you start to care about your other people, you start to care about society, and you start to care about the planet. And that is exactly what is needed right now. And this is a care that somehow comes from inside yourself. It's a care that does not come from the fact that your parents or your president or somebody else tells you that you need to care. It's a care that comes from the inside, and it really feels like you want to care. And that is part of this waking up process. And I think that also shows perhaps a bit in the strategy that we've had in Sweden in the COVID crisis, that we have actually in Sweden successfully put the responsibility to our citizens to actually care for each other. And I think that has worked fine so far. So I'm quite proud of that.
And you should be proud of something else, Tomas, because the people in Scandinavia care so much about their fellow country people that they're happy to pay taxes.
That's another thing. Yeah. So now we understand why this waking up is actually important today. It's important today both for the environment, but it's also important in some way for our democracy to work. Because for democracy to work, we need to have citizens who actually feel a little bit responsibility for the society, and that elects politicians that feel responsibility towards the society. So if we don't have enough people in a society that has woken up to this level, then you will find that those populations will elect authoritarian leaders that might even threaten democracy at its base.
And not only that, there will be discrimination.
Yeah.
Because there will be in-groups and out-groups, and when things are going wrong, the out-group, the minority will get blamed. So I take my hat off, not that I've got one on, but if I did, I would take my hat off to the Scandinavian nations, because, these are the nations that gave the highest percentage of their GDP to developing countries, because they care not only just about their people, they care about other people. And that's what I call humanity awareness.
But we should be aware of the fact that in the Scandinavian countries, my opinion is that we are losing this a little bit, because this awareness of the importance of the interpersonal development, the development and maturations of our values that was so dominant 100 years ago in the political language and thinking. After the Second World War, we lost this. We lost this worldview. We stopped realizing that our mind and our consciousness is actually on a lifelong developmental process. And we started to think more about the mind as a rational machine. And if you have that picture of your mind just as a machine that is something that just can function and cannot evolve or develop, then of course these consciousness development doesn't make sense. So these centers I was talking about, they actually still exist in Scandinavia, but we have to a very large extent forgotten about the fact that they were about inner maturation and finding our inner compass and consciousness development. Now most people believe that these centers were just adult education center, where you went to learn facts or learn skills. But that was not the case. Of course, you learned facts and skills there, but the most important part, and that what we have forgotten about, was the inner developmental journey that everyone went through.
Yeah, and our country is so far away from that. Our whole region is so really very far from that, from all of that. There is not many awakened people, not many people who really understand that working on themselves is important. But I'm so happy there are some young people like Nicola and exit people who are working on that to popularize this and making this as a movement here. So because we really need this here much more than you can realize. I understood when I came from Germany here to teach this with the idea to what I told you. The most of people ask me, are you crazy? Why are you coming from Germany to live in Serbia? Nobody is normal who is doing this. You must be crazy. So because everybody is going from here to live in Germany and you are coming back. And I told everybody, because the Germans are doing just right, that they are well, and there are much Germans who are doing this work already. But here there is nobody who is doing this work. I just want to come to my country. And now really people ask me sometimes, why don't you work on German? Because German is good and so. And I said, because nobody is doing this work in this quality in my own language, and there are much countries here around which understand all this the same language. And I am really sad when I think how far we are from the Scandinavian countries or from Germany, because I am born here and I missed 90s here when was war and everything, because I was in Germany. When I came here, I really had when I came back, I really had like a cultural shock, because I made my personality in Germany. So because I was very young when I gone there, and this is another conscious level than here. And when I came here, this was like what you were speaking about, that the people was shocked, for example, that on my computer was illegal programs. They was shocked about that there are legal programs on my computer. This was in early 2000s. And now we are changing this. Now it's normal for people to have legal programs, and I'm very happy about that. And now it's getting better with the taxes paying. So this was shock for Serbian people to pay taxes in 20 years ago, but now they are coming to that idea. So, but we are very far away from conscience and from inner development. And this is only small group from people with a few thousand instead of 20, there are 20 million people or more than 20 million people, only a few thousand working on themselves. This is a small amount, and I would be really happy when we would ever start something like Scandinavian is starting and using all of what you know already. This is really great. So.
Yeah, but I would just add that I feel quite hopeful in the way that I see in the young generation.
Yes.
People today around 20, a shift in attitude.
Yeah.
And there is a craving for meaning and purpose and also value in a way that was never dominant in my generation. So
Yes.
I have a lot of hope in the young generations now all over Europe.
And I'm also happy that exit people and Nicola helping there, that they are really making this. And I'm so sure that this can be a movement here around. And I hope that the young people who are listening this would have much more things like that to start to wake up and to start really to think about themselves as a power beings, that they can have a right to live their lives on a way like their parents didn't, but they can. I'm sorry for my English.
That's good.
I'd like to invite us back to the individual level, and two things. One is we spoke a lot about why this matters, Thomas, in particular to society. But why does it matter to me? And I know, Richard, you spoke about the influence of my thoughts on how I feel and my experience of life, and becoming aware of how my thinking is actually influencing my internal stability. And that's perhaps a catalyst for many people to say, if I'm feeling some tension in my life, if I'm feeling anxiety, if I'm feeling some degree of unhappiness or unease or dis-ease, I'm not at ease with something, well, maybe that's a starting point for looking into this. So if I say, okay, now I start looking into this, I hear a little bit around it. I'm interested. I go download the tools. I do the PVA. I download the 29K app. I look at Barrett Academy. And by the way, I've asked the Exit team to post the links for all three of those on Facebook Live, so everyone can just click them and go there. And then now what, right? You also mentioned one other thing, look for a community, right? Richard, you said there's national values associations being formed in many countries. So I can also look for a community. There's others like me who are having this feeling the same way I am, and who are also looking for support on this journey. Okay, then what do I do?
Well, this is where the experience that Thomas has and the experience that I've got, and actually Slavicia's experience comes into play. What we need to do is to organize in the countries where we live this type of Bildung experience. I call it Humanity Awareness Initiative. Call it whatever you want. But we need to repeat that. And I'm sure there are people listening and watching who are saying, yeah, I'd like to be part of that. Where can I sign up? So what I'm doing at the moment is for about several months now, I've got a team of people looking at setting up humanity awareness teams in different countries. And we have a team building in Brazil, we got a team building in the USA, a team building in Sweden, and the whole idea is how do we bring this idea into these countries? And what I'm saying is, let's go where the energy is. Who is it who wants to partake in this? And I think you were talking to Thomas earlier about the universities, but we need to take it beyond the universities. We need to take it to the people who never got to university. We need to take it to young adults. We need to take it to our business leaders and political leaders. One of the interesting things as openings that's just come is that working in Brazil, one of the a very large company have come to us and said, look, we want to be a purpose-driven company. We want to be more sustainable, but we want not just with the products and services, but we want to contribute to society. So can you instruct us how to build this idea of humanity awareness initiative into our company, so that we are basically they're asking for us for the company to go through, the leaders of the company to go through a building experience or an experience of becoming conscious. Now, I'm saying to that company, yeah, we can do that. And by the way, we'll charge you for it. And by the way, a certain amount of money that we charging you for it will go into the Humanity Awareness Initiative Fund, so that we can actually build curricula for schools or curricula for people who can't pay. So I think that we need to think of this in a larger sense of it's not just young people. I think we need to bring our business leaders into this as well, and to get these companies to finance this whole movement. Oh, that's my idea at the moment, anyhow.
Oh, I like this idea. This is really good idea to bring this to the people with help from business leaders, because I can imagine that this is possible in our country, because I am working with some business leaders and they are amazed about effects what they have when they personally work on their own inner compass, and then what this impact have on their when their companies and their employees and their city.
Yeah, productivity goes up, efficiency goes up, everything goes up.
Everything goes up, and this is so great to have an idea. And I think I have some education that I named this Power Life Design. So I'm teaching people the basic thing, how to think about their life and make goals and plan for life, because they don't do that. The people don't do this. They just live like everybody said they should live. They should have a university degree, and they should get a job, they should get the children, they should get to retirement, and they should die then. So
it's really important that you die at the end. Yeah, if you don't die, you're missing the point.
But not before they are retired. So not die before the children are finished with university and everything that. So but really, I teach people this basic thing, and this changed their life. So only to learn how to think about their life. They didn't used to think with their own head about their lives. So, and this is a small thing which can change much. So just I have a free book on my ebook on my website, how to setting goals. So, and the people can download that and just work through this. This is easy to do. And because I think I would love that so many people as possible learn to think about their life and not to be like without goals, living without goals, like wandering around in their life. Yes.
So what you can do there as well is to start youth camps. So my foundation in Stockholm, during the summers, we have youth camps for adolescents in the age of 14, 15, 16. 2 weeks out in nature, where you actually start thinking about what are your values, what do you do, what do you want to do with your life, what's your purpose, where do you find meaning, and just starting. Having 2 weeks that early in life where you can start thinking about those together with friends and just having a nice playful summer camp, that can actually have life-changing effects on some of the participants.
Yes, really, I believe that. We are doing now with Zoom, and we are so lucky that Corona came, because we have so much more people who are participating in our Zoom trainings all around the world who are speaking our language. And I'm so happy we have 10 times more participants than before because of that. And I am really happy because I didn't thought that I will reach so much people in a so short time than we done now, and this is really great. But these are not really only young people. Most of people are between 35 and 55 or 25 and 55, and I would really like to have younger people. So the exit, I think it's a really good possibility to reach to these people too, with these basic things, to learn them how to set goals for their life and make a plan and go with that. And from their own head, not from what parents said, like plan to finish university, find a job, find a woman, have a children, have a retired and die. So the other plan, I think, the just different plan, where they can have the purpose and really live full life and live something there in our country.
So let me take this to a deeper level, okay? Yeah, I don't get ready for this one. You see, people think that they have a soul. Well, my point is this: you don't have a soul. Yes, you are the soul. You are the soul. Oh, and guess what? You know, your soul incarnated into this lifetime for a purpose, and for you to live that purpose. And if you're going to live, as you said, all the shoulds, you'll never live your purpose. And so those people who are coming and attending you are feeling this impulse, this soul impulse to find meaning in their lives, find their gifts and talents, and then make a difference. I mean, Thomas is a perfect example. I'm sorry, Thomas, I'm going to use you as an example. Here is a businessman, a serial entrepreneur, who gets to a certain stage of his life and says, well, this has no meaning for me. I'm going to go and do this now. And that was my experience too. I was a top of my field in transportation engineering, working at the World Bank. I was 45 years, suddenly bored with my career. And I realized, actually, I wasn't supposed to be a transportation engineer. I was supposed to be a transformation engineer. And that changed my whole bloody life.
I was a sales director in Germany, and then I quit my job and came to Serbia. Everybody was thinking I'm out of my mind.
Exactly.
But I feel like a purpose. Yeah, that's
and so this goes back to the point that Nicola mentioned. When you feel resistance, when you feel a lack of equilibrium, when you feel things are not going right, this is pain. And this pain is positive because it's pointing right at what you need to shift in order to get back into alignment. And this alignment is the alignment of the ego with the soul. Now, the ego just follows the instructions of society and parents, whereas the soul is wanting to do something completely different. It's really wanting to do three things. One, self-express. Secondly, connect. And third, contribute. So deep inside, we all have that need to self-express who we fully are, to connect with other people so we can make a difference, and then to contribute to society. And as you get older, like Thomas and I'm sorry, we're old. We have to admit, well, I'm a lot older than most people here. We get into that contributing stage, you know? I mean, it's like you can't help it. It's just the way you go through life. And Slavicia, you're into the
hopefully
stage.
We should say hopefully go through life, because sadly, many people go through life without realizing this possibility, and that realizing this possibility is part of this waking up.
Exactly.
That you mentioned. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think, Thomas, that's a really important point, because what all the research shows is that if a society lives to this level of consciousness, every new person born into that society starts from zero. So there's no guarantee that you will go to that level or go past that level of consciousness. And the only guarantee is that you make the choice, usually somewhere in your late teens or early 20s, but can happen later in life as well, that you make the choice and say, I'm going to take charge of my own life, my own destiny, expressing what I actually feel, and find and follow my own path. And I think that's a really important point to make, is that it's really that individual. Each of us needs to make that choice for ourselves. There's no other way. So maybe you could comment on that.
Unfortunately, perhaps even a majority of people in Europe do not make that step early in life, and they might never take that step. If you are lucky, perhaps you have some sort of crisis in the middle of your life. You might be 45 and have a heart attack, and that makes you start question your life and your values. And then you might realize that even if you are a successful lawyer, that you are actually living the life of your parents. It might be your father or your mother who really wanted to be that lawyer and has passed that on to you. But you are 45 and you realize you never wanted to be a successful lawyer. You wanted to be something else. And of course, it's good that you wake up at some point and find that out. But it's even better if you find that out in your early 20s than in your mid 40s, or even ever, and that you die as a successful lawyer you never really wanted to be.
Yes, the majority of people, it's really sad, but until they come to 25, they gave up their dreams. They really gave up their dream. They had the dreams, and then the reasonable people around, all the reasonable people told them this is all bullshit. They should live an ordinary life like lawyers or doctors or whatever they should do. I'm sorry. We say here, there is a saying here, the most of people, this is very sad, but most of people are dead with 25. They will be buried with 80, but they are dead with 25. And so it's really called for the young people to not give up their dreams. Their dreams are the real life, what they should live. Even if the older people said to them they should give this up and live an ordinary life. Ordinary life is not the life for our soul. It's not the life why we came here. Our power is much more there than for ordinary life. I believe in that.
Yeah, but we should not blame the older people, our parents, because they were brought up in conditions which were very focused on survival.
Absolutely.
So they learned when they were young that this was necessary and this was necessary and this was necessary, and they're trying to pass on that wisdom that they learned when they were young to their children. But that what they don't have forgotten is that we're living in a completely different age now.
Yes.
And so you can't blame, but they're living from a different worldview, and young people are living from a different worldview. And so it's important to see past that worldview and to see historically how your worldview, the people who around you, the older people, actually built their worldview because they had to, because they were very unsafe, didn't feel very secure. But times are different. Yeah, I liked very much, Nicola, what you said earlier about summary. You are almost summarizing everything and saying, we need to live our own lives.
Yeah.
And the lives our souls intended. I'm sorry, the lives our soul intended for us.
Yeah, and the fact that the world is changing so rapidly now makes it even difficult to know what our lives will be like, and to choose a career and education and all of that. And then we are back again to the only thing you can rely on is really your values. So find your own values and make sure that you live those values. And when you are looking for a job, make sure that that company or that organization that you are joining actually share your values, and ask the organization for that purpose and see if you want to contribute to that purpose. And if you do that and you find that you have an alignment, then the chances are much, much greater that you will find enjoyment and happiness and ease. And if you don't have this alignment, again, as Richard pointed out, then you will not feel well, and you might have a burnout or other problems. So again, find your values, try to live your values.
I like this, what Richard said, the lack of equilibrium, because I think it's important also for young people to know that there is an equilibrium, what we need. This is not only, even if we are follow our bliss and going to our values and everything, this is not only always easy. This is sometimes this is what I just want to say. This is not like happy peppy all the time. So this is just we are much more stronger to go through the difficulties when we are on our path. So this is, and there are some difficulties too, but they are different. And we know, when we know that we are on our path, then this is not a way to illness or a stress and a burnout. And this is way to growth and to contribution. Like also Richard said, I like this lack of equilibrium is really something what is not what we would like on any side, you know what I mean. So not always everything happy and not always everything bad, but in the right way.
It takes courage to live your values.
Yes,
it takes courage because you become different, and you may have to, and you may find a gulf opening up between you and your parents or you and your peers, and it takes courage to be your own person.
Yes.
But you will find other people who are of a similar mindset, and then those become your new friends because they are operating at that similar level of consciousness. It does take courage. It does take courage.
Yeah. This is really what I wanted to say. Thank you, Richard. This takes courage. Yes. Thank you.
And at least in the Balkans, we have a lot of programming around, you won't be able to do it, don't try, don't bother, it won't work, it's not going to happen, just sit there, relax, stay there, don't spend your money, don't spend, stay, it's okay, stay, it won't work. And it's
who are you? And they are only waiting for you. What do you think? And something like that.
Who do you think you are? You think they're just waiting for you. So it's almost an encouragement that, courage is also linked to believing in yourself. It takes courage to believe in yourself, and shifting that voice of believing in yourself to make that louder than the voice that will naturally be there from the programming around, don't even bother, it won't work, don't even try. And that is where the courage comes in. I think, Richard, thank you for bringing that in, because that's a heart word. And Thomas, you were saying about knowing, you don't know what the future holds. Well, you might not know here, but are you knowing from here, or are you knowing from the heart? And then when you live from that place of courage, then that is actually the fuel for living a values-driven life.
You see, the word courage comes from the French, cœur, the heart. Courage comes from the heart.
This is so nice. I love it.
And it's also in your framework, Richard, it's in the middle. It's transformational energy. It's that energy that shifts from the I to the we, from the individual to the collective, and it helps you move upwards. Beautiful. Well, friends, that was a wonderful dialogue. I feel like we're slowly coming to a close. We're also significantly over time, but it was such a rich dialogue that I felt it needed the space to naturally come to its conclusion, which I feel we're reaching now. As we close, I would love to ask each of you, what is the one thing you would love to leave our viewers with? So out of everything that we shared, and we've all shared a lot, if there's a single pearl that you would like to leave our viewers with, what would that be?
I should start. And that would be whatever society tells you, never forget that you are on a lifelong developmental journey, that developmental journey sometimes is hard, and sometimes you must give up part of yourself in order to reach the next level of your life. So keep in mind that you are on a lifelong journey. Thank you.
Okay, and I can say something like the young people should know that most of their time they should invest in developing themselves and learning about themselves and about their future and life, much more than investing in other things, so like looking news or something else. So just invest your time and money in developing yourself.
Yeah, I'd second that, developing yourself and listen to that inner voice, which it prompts you to go in a direction that allows you to find equilibrium. If you find yourself out of equilibrium, distressed, sad, depressed, it means that you're out of alignment with your soul. Depression is sadness of the soul because the ego wants to go one way and the soul is saying, no, you need to go this way. And so you get depressed when that doesn't happen. So you need to listen. And then that's that second element of being conscious, to be aware of the impact of your thoughts and beliefs on your physical and mental health. I mean, mental health is becoming a huge issue because of course we're not listening to our deeper meaning of who we are, but as we just mentioned, becoming who you truly are takes courage.
Thank you, Richard. That really sparked something in me. I was remembering back when 2012, when I realized that my mission in life is to contribute to building a values-driven society in the Balkans. And when I made that shift in my entire career towards all this work, my anxiety level decreased by 80%. I always had massive issues with anxiety. I always needed to be the best. I was sort of, that type of parenting around, always needed to get the 5 grades and, or the A's, and it was never good enough. You could always do better. 80% of that lifelong anxiety just melted away when I said, I don't care what's going to happen. I don't care if I get fired from McKinsey. I don't care whether they want to do it or not. I'm going to go do this in this system or another system. It's just going to happen. And then here we are on the panel, talking about this with Slavica with us and the exit people and young people listening to us. And, we're all on this journey together, and we're all here with you. And it's really been a pleasure sharing this space with all 4 of you and all 3 of you and all our listeners. So in gratitude for the time we've had in space, and looking forward to our next interaction.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Wonderful.
I'm so happy to know you, all of you. So
same here.
Thank you.